Okay, so in this chapter, we are going to look at the physical features of India. Now, you've already learned earlier that India is a vast country with varied landforms. Varied means different landforms. Now, the question for you is what kind of terrain? Terrain simply means the lay of the land. What kind of terrain do you live in? Do you live in plains? Or then you would be familiar with the vast stretches of plain land. In contrast, if you live in hilly region, the rugged terrain of the mountains and valleys are common features. In fact, our country has practically all major physical features on earth, that is mountains, plains, deserts, plateaus and islands. And this is the key idea in this paragraph, that our country has all major physical features of the earth that ranges from mountains to plains to deserts to plateaus and islands. Now, if we look into this in a little bit more detail, the land of India displays great physical variation. Geologically, the Peninsula Plateau constitutes of one of the ancient land masses on the Earth's surface. It was supposed to be the most stable land blocks. Then we have the Himalayas and the northern plains, which are the most recent landforms. Now, from the point of view of geology, the Himalayan mountains form an unstable zone. The whole mountain system of the Himalaya represents a very youthful, which means relatively young topography with high peaks, deep valleys, and fast flowing rivers. On the other hand, the northern plains they are formed of alluvial deposits. The peninsular plateau is composed of igneous and metamorphic rocks with gently rising hills and wide valleys. So this is the kind of the focus of this chapter, and in this paragraph just gives you an idea of just some of the high level features of the physical features in India. Now let us look at the major physiographic divisions. The physical features of India can be grouped under the following physiographic divisions. So we have the Himalayan mountains, then we have the northern plains, the peninsular plateau, the Indian desert, the coastal plains, and the islands. And in this chapter, we are going to study each of them one by one. Now, this says that this is all given in figure 2.2. So let's just have a look at the figure 2.2. So this is the figure 2.2, which kind of shows all the different physical features of India. Here you can see the different mountain ranges that you have in Himalaya. You have the mid ranges. So and there are different ranges there. Then you can see these are all the different regions that are kind of pointed, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it is a good idea for you to familiarize yourself with the key regions mentioned here, right? Because that's what we are going to study further in this chapter. Now let's go back to the Himalayan mountains. So the Himalayas, they are geologically young and structurally fold mountains stretch over the northern borders of India. These mountain ranges run in the west to east direction from Indus to the Brahmaputra River. The Himalayas represent the loftiest and one of the most rugged mountain barriers of the world. They form an arc. An arc is kind of this kind of a shape. They form an arc which covers a distance of about 2,400 kilometers, so pretty massive. And the width of these mountains, it varies from about 400 kilometers in Kashmir to 150 kilometers in Arunachal Pradesh. The altitudinal, that means the height of the mountain ranges, they are greater in the eastern half than those in the western half. So these are some of the salient features of the Himalayan region. Now the Himalaya actually consists of three parallel ranges in its longitudinal extent. A number of valleys are there between these three ranges. The first range is the northernmost range, and it's known as the Great or the Inner Himalayas or the Himadri range. It is the most continuous range consisting of the loftiest peaks with an average height of about 6,000 meters. And it contains all the prominent Himalayan peaks that you already might have heard about. So here let's look at this picture here, right? So as you can see that the width of these mountains is much higher in this region, and it is much lesser as you move towards this region over here. And you can see there are all these different ranges, and then you have the outer, the mid, and the inner range, right? So now some of the highest peak of the Himalayas are given here. Mount Everest, based in Nepal, is 8,848 meters. Then you have Kanchenjunga, which is based in India. It's about 8,600 meters in height. You have Makalu in Nepal, Dholgiri, Nanga Parbat, Annapurna. These are also kind of in the range of 8,400 to about 8,000. Then you have the Nanda Devi, Kamet, Namcha Baba, and the Gurla Mandhata. They are also kind of in the 7,500 and above kind of a range. So you can almost think about this as, you can think that there are some ranges which are above, closer to 8,500. Some of them are between 8,000 to 8,300, and the others are between 7,700 to about 7,800. You can almost think about it that way. Now, the folds of the Great Himalayas are asymmetrical in nature, means there is no symmetry. And the core of this part of Himalayas is composed of granite. Granite is the main stone. And it is perennially snowbound, which means all the year around it has snow. And a number of glaciers descend from this range. Okay, so the range lying to the south of Himadri forms the most rugged mountain known as the Himachal or the Lesser Himalayas. Okay, these ranges are mainly composed of highly compressed and altered rocks. The altitude varies between about 3,700 and 4,500, and you can understand why this is known as the Lesser Himalaya, right? If you compare the height of these mountains, it's much lesser than what we saw of the highest peaks beforehand, right? And the average width of this is about 50 kilometers. While the Pir Panjal range forms the longest and the most important range, the Dhauladhar and the Mahabharat ranges are also prominent ones. And this range consists of the famous valley of Kashmir, the Kangra, and the Kulu Valley in Himachal Pradesh. And of course, this Kulu Valley is well known for its hill stations. So you can see all those things that we talked about, all the mountain parts, that they are kind of mentioned all over here. And it will be helpful for you to just familiarize yourself with these. Okay. Now the outermost range of the Himalayas is called as the Shivalik. So you can locate the Shivaliks over here. See, this is the outermost. So here is what you have, the Shivaliks range. They extend over a width of about 10 to 50 kilometers and have an altitude varying between 900 and 1100. So you can see that their altitude is even lesser than that of the Lesser Himalayas. These ranges are composed of unconsolidated sediments brought down by rivers from the main Himalayan ranges located farther north. Now these valleys are covered with thick gravel and alluvium. The longitudinal valley lying between the Lesser Himalaya and the Shivaliks are known as the duns. Dehradun, Kotlidun and Patlidun are some of the well-known duns. Now, besides these, so we up until now we were talking about the longitudinal divisions, means along the longitude, right? So we were going like these ranges, like the three ranges that we talked about. The Himalayas have also been divided on the basis of regions from west to east. So you have N, E, W, N. You also have seen that from west to east, right? They're also defined based on this direction. Now these divisions have been demarcated by river valleys. So you just use the river valleys. So for example, the part of Himalayas lying between Indus and Satluj has been traditionally known as Punjab, Himalaya. But it is also known regionally as Kashmir and Himachal Himalaya from the west to the east respectively. The part of Himalayas lying between Satluj and Kali rivers are known as the Kumaon Himalaya. So you have first one, right? So you have Indus and basically the Punjab Himalaya or the Kashmir and Himachal. Then the second one you have is Kumaon Himalayas. The Kali and Tista rivers demarcate the Nepal Himalayas, and the part lying between Tista and the Hang rivers is known as the Assam Himalayas. So there are regional names also in these broad categories, and you can find some of these regional names of the Himalayas by talking to your friend or just doing some Google search. Now, the Brahmaputra marks the easternmost boundary of the Himalayas. Beyond the Dihang Gorge, the Himalayas bend sharply, very, very sharply to the south and spread along the eastern boundary of India. They are known as the Purvachal or the Eastern Hills and the mountains. Now, these hills running through the northeastern states are mostly composed of strong sandstones, which are sedimentary rocks. Now, covered with dense forest, these mostly run as parallel ranges and valleys. The Purvachal comprises of Patkai Hills, the Naga Hills, the Manipur Hills, and the Mizo Hills. So that is all about the Himalayas. Now let us look at the northern plain. That's just the the physical features of the northern plains in India. So the northern plain has been formed by the interplay of three major river systems: the Indus, the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra, along with their tributaries. Now, this plain is formed of alluvial soil. The deposition of alluvium in a vast basin lying at the foothills of the Himalaya over millions of years formed this fertile plain. It spreads over an area of 7 lakh square kilometer, and the plain being about 2,400 kilometer long and between 240 to 320 kilometer broad. It is a densely populated physiographic division. With a rich soil cover combined with adequate water supply and favorite climate, it is agriculturally a productive part of India, which kind of makes sense, right? Now, the rivers that are coming from the northern mountains are involved in the depositional work. In the lower course, due to the gentle slope, the velocity of the river decreases, which results in the formation of riverine islands. Now you can try and search a little bit more about the riverine islands, and here is an example called Majuli in the Brahmaputra river is one of the largest inhabited riverine island in the world. You might want to just search a bit more for it. Now the northern plain is also broadly divided into three sections. The western part of the northern plain is referred to as the Punjab plains, formed by the Indus and its tributaries. The larger part of this plain lies in Pakistan. The Indus and its tributaries, the Jhelum, the Chenab, the Ravi, the Beas, and the Satluj, they originate in the Himalaya. The section of this plain is dominated by the Doabs. So what is Doab? Doab is simply made up of two words. Do means two and Ab means water. So similarly, Punjab is also made up of two words. Panj means five and Ab meaning water.